My husband cheated on me in front of everyone. I got revenge by sleeping with a homeless man, and I got pregnant. But when I went to get an abortion, he turned out to be the father. Before we continue, write in the comments where you're tuning in from, and if my story moved you, make sure you're subscribed so more stories like this can reach those who still need to be heard. Your click makes a difference. Fake happiness hurts more than true loneliness, and Arantxa realized at the moment she heard her husband laughing with another woman in the bathroom on their own anniversary. Arantxa was 36 years old, and although she rarely said it out loud, she felt like she had lived more than her share. Her face still held that calm beauty that didn't need makeup, even though, ironically, she made her living from aesthetics. Owner and co-founder with her husband of one of the most successful beauty salons in the city, Intima, Arantxa had spent years building her empire from nothing. Literally. She came from a neighborhood where the only aspiration for many women was not to get pregnant before turning 18. She was used to fighting. She knew what it was like to stretch her skin with ice to hide exhaustion, smile even when her soul was shattered, and say, "I'm fine," when anxiety was eating her up inside. But that night, in the exclusive lounge rented to celebrate the business's 8th anniversary, something was off. Since they arrived, Geronimo had been distant, attentive to everyone but her. He greeted, laughed, toasted, but every time Arantxa approached, he found an excuse to walk away. "Are you okay?" she asked, holding a glass of wine, trying to find a crack in his wall. Geronimo looked at her for barely a second, like she was just another assistant, not the woman he shared a home, a bed, and bills with. "I'm fine. It's just too crowded and hot," he said, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief Arantxa had given him last year, the same day he forgot her birthday. No more was needed. Arantxa knew something was wrong. She'd been noticing small signs for months. The phone always on silent, long meetings with no explanation, showers that lasted too long after coming home. But like many women, she'd preferred to convince herself they were just her imagination. That she shouldn't distrust him. That it would be unfair. That night, the salon was full of golden balloons, branded champagne, and falsely emotional speeches. The most loyal clients had been invited, as well as employees and some influencers who collaborated with the brand. Among them was Noelia, a young woman of barely 22, with a high-pitched voice and curves that looked like they came out of a magazine. Arantxa had met her when she found her cleaning windows on a street corner with a dirty face and empty eyes. She offered her a job, taught her how to treat clients, apply makeup, style hair. She treated her like a little sister. "You're glowing today," Arantxa said sincerely as she passed near her with a tray of appetizers. Noelia just smiled nervously, looked down, and in that gesture, Arantxa felt a chill. A discomfort in her stomach. Something didn't fit. That's when she decided to go to the bathroom to touch up her makeup. Not out of vanity, but instinct. She needed to escape for a minute. What she found behind that door shattered her soul in two. Laughter. Whispers. A gasp. The slightly open door of one of the bathrooms revealed Geronimo, with his back turned, shirt unbuttoned, hand gripping Noelia's thigh, who was laughing mischievously. They were kissing as if the world didn't exist. "Oh, Jiro, what if someone comes in? Let them come in. Let them see who's in charge. I'm tired of hiding." And Arantxa? Her? She doesn't turn me on one bit anymore. She's old. Dry. Always talking about work, bills, her sick mother. "I don't want a wife, no. I want a real woman." Arantxa felt her chest break. She couldn't move. The sound of that phrase left her paralyzed. Every word was a stab. "But she helped you build all this," Noelia said, in a naive attempt to hide her guilt. "So what? She did her part. Now I need something fresh. You make me feel alive." With her, it's like sleeping with a corpse. I want to shove a bill in her mouth just to shut her up. She couldn't listen to him anymore. Arantxa pushed the door open and slipped out like a shadow down the club's side hallway, ignoring all the guests trying to greet her as if everything were fine. No one noticed she was gone. Outside, the night air hit her face like a slap. The city, bright and noisy, showed no mercy to betrayed women. She leaned her back against the wall, trembling. She thought about calling someone. She thought about crying, but she couldn't. That's when she saw him. A few meters away, staggering next to a fallen motorcycle, was a man. Tall, thin, his shirt stained with dried blood. He looked lost. His hair was messy, his eyes watery. A broken bottle lay near his foot. The streetlight's glare made him seem like a ghost. "Are you okay?" Arantxa asked, approaching without really knowing why. The man lifted his head. He wasn't a homeless person, nor did he look like just any drunk. There was something in his gaze that stopped her. "I'm burying my father," he said in a hoarse, almost inaudible voice. Then he let himself fall against the wall as if the weight of the world had defeated him. Arantxa crouched down in front of him. She saw a slight cut on his eyebrow. Her caregiver instinct kicked in, mixed with the emotional chaos inside her. "You can't stay here," she said more to herself than to him. "I have nowhere to go," he replied, looking up at the sky. "I do." She didn't know when she helped him up, nor how they got into the taxi, nor how she explained to the driver. She only knew she had to do something. She felt that if she didn't save someone, even a stranger, that night she would fall apart. They arrived at her apartment, the same one she had carefully decorated, with wedding photos on the walls, with pillows embroidered with phrases like "home sweet home." The contrast was ironic. Bruno, as he introduced himself before falling asleep on her couch, dropped his body like a dead weight. Arantxa covered him with a blanket, cleaned his wound with hydrogen peroxide, and left a glass of saline solution on the table. Then she went to the bathroom, washed her face, took off her heels, and sat down on the cold floor. She couldn't cry. She felt empty. An hour passed, maybe 2. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching. She just listened to the repetitive sound of the fan. "Where am I?" Bruno murmured from the couch. "At my place." "Why?" "I don't know." He sat up, with difficulty, looked at his hands, then at his watch. He took it off and left it on the table. "Today I buried my father. No one came. Just me. No flowers. No priest. Nothing." Arantxa looked at him without answering. "He hated me," Bruno continued. "But I went anyway, because he was my father. And now I feel like I have no one left." "Me neither." Silence. Bruno looked at her clearly for the first time. "Did you lose someone too?" "No, not completely. But I lost myself. I heard my husband say I'm like a corpse." Arantxa's voice broke. Finally, she cried without shame, her shoulders shaking, her hands covering her face. Bruno said nothing. He just moved closer, slowly, and sat next to her. He didn't touch her. He just shared the space. Minutes later, as if driven by the need not to feel alone, they hugged. It was clumsy. It was sad. It was human. There was no passion. Just 2 broken souls trying to survive one more night. That dawn, Arantxa took him to the guest room. She gave him Geronimo's clothes. She lay down without showering, without taking off her dress. She closed her eyes, but couldn't sleep. From the other room, she heard Bruno's voice, sobbing. "Dad, why didn't you tell me you were sick?" That whisper pierced her chest. She woke up with the light filtering through the window. She sat on the bed, still in her wrinkled dress. She stared at the ceiling. "What have I just done?" she whispered. And for the first time in many years, she felt afraid of what was to come. The silence of that morning was so dense it seemed to have a shape. Arantxa sat on the bed, still wearing the wrinkled dress, her gaze fixed on the ceiling as if searching for answers on a white surface that said nothing. The sun slipped through the barely open curtains, casting beams of light that failed to warm her. The echo of the previous night shook her from within. The phrase came out on its own, whispered, incredulous, broken. "What have I just done?" She stood up clumsily. Her mouth was dry, her hands trembled slightly, and she felt as if she had crossed an invisible threshold. She walked barefoot down the hallway. The guest room door was ajar. Bruno was still asleep, curled up, with the blanket pulled up to his chest. He was breathing with difficulty, as if he was having nightmares too. She didn't wake him. She didn't want to keep looking at him either. She went back to her room, took a cold shower to clear her head, put on simple clothes, and went downstairs to make coffee. The sound of the filter dripping was the only thing that accompanied her for several minutes. When Bruno woke up, he seemed different. There was something about the way he sat, about how he avoided looking at her directly, that showed shyness. Or maybe guilt. "You don't have to say anything," Arantxa said, pouring him a cup without looking at him. I don't know when," he began, running a hand through his hair. "We slept. Nothing happened. We just needed not to be alone." Bruno nodded, grateful for the clarity. They drank in silence until he asked if he could use the bathroom. After showering, he came out wearing the same pants as the day before and a t-shirt belonging to Geronimo. "Thanks," he said, checking his watch. "I have to go. I'm on duty." Arantxa nodded, without asking which hospital he worked at. Bruno crossed the living room, stopped at the door, turned around, and said something before leaving. "If you ever need to talk, or just sit quietly with someone, call me. My real name is Bruno." That wasn't a lie. She only nodded. When he left, she felt the air in the house way less, but her soul more. 3 hours passed before Geronimo came through the door as if nothing had happened. He didn't even pretend to be worried. He carried a bag with croissants and orange juice. "Good morning, Queen. You slept here, right? I didn't see you come back." Arantxa didn't answer immediately. She looked at him, observed him in detail. The clean shirt, the smell of mouthwash, hands with traces of someone else's perfume, a man masking guilt with everyday gestures. "Yes, I slept here," she replied, emotionless. "I felt tired. I noticed. You seemed off at the party. And everything went perfectly. People were delighted. Were you delighted too?" Geronimo didn't catch the double meaning or pretended not to. He moved closer to kiss her, but Arantxa subtly turned her face away. He laughed, forced. "Come on, woman. Are you on your period or what? Do you think everything can be reduced to that? Look, if you're having morning drama, I'll just go shower. Do whatever you want." Geronimo went upstairs, whistling. Arantxa stayed staring at her cup, her eyes red and jaw clenched. In the days that followed, she pretended. Smiled in the living room, answered emails, scheduled posts, cooked, did laundry. And in the midst of it all, she felt something inside her changing. The nausea came first, the discomfort at certain smells, a dizziness that made her suddenly sit down during a virtual meeting. And the suspicion turned into certainty when she saw the delay. She bought a test and hid it in the bathroom like it was dynamite. It took her 3 days to use it. When she finally did, she saw 2 lines. Clear, undeniable. Sitting on the edge of the bathtub, the test in her hand, she was speechless. She didn't think of joy. She didn't think of life. She thought of chaos. Whose was it? Geronimo's or Bruno's? The possibility that it was her husband's was real. But the dates also left room for the other. And that other had a name, a face, and slept with sadness in his eyes. That night, she couldn't sleep. She dreamed she was walking down a long, white, silent hallway. At the end, a door with blinking lights. When she opened it, a baby was crying, naked, in a metal crib. As she approached, the baby looked at her, smiled, and said, "Mom." But as soon as she tried to touch him, he disappeared, leaving a pool of blood. She woke up drenched in sweat, screaming. Geronimo got up scared. "What the hell's wrong with you?" "Nothing," It was just a dream. You're becoming weird. Really? Between how cold you've been lately and now this. Arantxa didn't answer. She got up, went to the bathroom, washed her face. In the mirror, she didn't recognize herself. She had dark circles, dull skin, a hollow look in her eyes. Where was the woman who dreamed of having a family? That same week, Geronimo started sneaking out again. He pretended to have business calls, urgent meetings. Sometimes he didn't even bother to hide it. Arantxa decided to look for a clinic. She couldn't go on like this. Fear overwhelmed her. She didn't feel capable of raising a child amid so much chaos. She looked for a discreet place, outside the city center, where they wouldn't ask too many questions. She called, made an appointment, and got one 2 days later. The place smelled like bleach and disinfectant. An old house repurposed. A receptionist without a name asked for her information. They gave her a gown. They put her in a waiting room with other women who avoided making eye contact. Arantxa held the ultrasound in her hand. She squeezed it. It was small, just a little spot with a heartbeat. But it was beating. They called her. She climbed some stairs, entered an exam room. And then the world stopped. Bruno, in a white coat, gloves, a surprised look on his face. It took him 2 seconds to recognize her. She froze too. Arantxa, he said, unable to help himself. It can't be. Are you the patient? She didn't know what to say. She nodded. Bruno looked down at the file, confirmed the name, confirmed the reason for the visit. Do you want to have an abortion? She didn't answer. She held the ultrasound tight against her chest. Arantxa, are you sure you want to erase the only night that saved you? She swallowed hard. The phrase cut through her like a knife. She felt her stomach tighten. Don't say that, she whispered. Don't judge me. You don't know what's happening. I know what I saw that night. What I felt. We were broken, yes. But also alive. If you erase that, what's left? She burst into tears, covered her face with her hands. Bruno took off his gloves. He stepped closer. He didn't touch her. I'm not going to do this, he said. Not like this. Not unless you're sure. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. I'm married to a monster. I don't know whose baby this is. My life is a lie. Then do whatever it takes to rebuild it. But don't destroy yourself in the process. Arantxa stayed there sitting, crying. Bruno offered her a tissue. He left the room and let her decide. She was alone for an hour. No one interrupted her. When she went downstairs, she returned the gown. Went outside. She held the ultrasound in her hand. She didn't know where to go. She walked blocks without direction until the sky darkened. She sat in a park, looked at the image of the fetus, the beating heart, and murmured, I don't want to lose you. At home, Geronimo was waiting. He had made pasta, a glass of wine, like nothing had happened. Where were you? I needed to walk. Weird again? Arantxa, damn, you've been unbearable lately. She didn't answer. Went up to the bedroom, put the ultrasound in her underwear drawer. That night, she dreamed again of the baby. This time, it didn't disappear. It took her finger with its little hand and didn't let go. The night was long and heavy. The clock moved slowly, each minute stretching as if mocking Arantxa's insomnia. Lying on the cold sheets, with the lamp on, she tried to force herself to sleep, but couldn't. She felt a dull vibration inside her chest, a kind of echo that didn't come from the outside world, but from within. Like a soft, steady drumbeat, a heartbeat. She tried to ignore it, closed her eyes, changed position, covered her ears. Nothing worked. The sound was in her head, in her body, deep inside. It was as if something or someone refused to be ignored. She opened her eyes again and looked at the ceiling, took a deep breath, thought it was nerves, thought it was anxiety. But it wasn't. It was real. She got up, walked barefoot to the bathroom, opened the drawer. The ultrasound was no longer there. She checked twice, 3 times. Nothing. That's when the image came to her mind. She remembered that after coming back from the clinic, still confused, she had thrown it into the kitchen trash can as if getting rid of a burning guilt. She ran to the bin. It was almost full. She rummaged through fruit peels, greasy papers, and food scraps. At the bottom, wrinkled and damp, was the image. A black stain on white. And in the middle, that tiny dot of life. Arantxa froze, with dirty hands and eyes filling with tears. She held the ultrasound as if it were a piece of her soul torn out and thrown into oblivion. She felt her heart trembling, as if her own body was scolding her for having discarded it. She sat on the floor. She cried, not out of sadness, but from the sudden certainty that she couldn't do it. She couldn't kill the only pure thing left of herself. She couldn't erase a life out of fear. That little being was not to blame for the disaster her life had become. It was innocent, and maybe her only chance for redemption. "I'm going to take care of you," she murmured through tears. "I don't know how, but I'm going to take care of you." When dawn came, Arantxa had already made a decision. And when Geronimo got up, he found his wife making coffee with a calmness he hadn't seen in months. "Are you over the drama already?" he asked mockingly as he poured himself some juice. "I'm going to have a baby," she replied without looking at him. Geronimo paused, juice halfway to his lips. He frowned. "What?" "What you heard. I'm pregnant." "And how do you know it's mine?" That phrase hit the conversation like a stone. Arantxa looked straight into his eyes. "I don't know, but that doesn't change anything." "Are you crazy?" He laughed sarcastically. "You want to raise a child without knowing who the father is? Have you gotten that irresponsible?" "I've become brave." Geronimo was silent for a few seconds. Then he crossed his arms. "I'm not going to take care of a bastard. Not a cent from me. And if it's mine, I want proof. Because I'm not raising a mistake. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm informing you." "Informing? Who do you think you are?" He stepped closer aggressively. "Everything you have is thanks to me. This house, this business, this comfortable life. And now you come to me saying you're going to have a child without my permission. You're sick. I don't need your permission for anything, and I don't want anything from you either." Geronimo let out a dry laugh. "How ungrateful you are. A woman who doesn't show gratitude is worse than a snake. And you don't even seem like a woman anymore. You're empty. Hollow. I don't even want to touch you." Arantxa looked at him without blinking. Then she turned and went upstairs. She packed a suitcase with clothes, documents, and the ultrasound folded among her things. She put away a photo of her mother and a bracelet her brother had given her before going to prison. When she came down, Geronimo was on the phone in the kitchen. "Yes, love, she's leaving. Finally, the crazy one is leaving. Now we'll finally be able to live in peace." She walked through the living room without saying a word. She closed the door calmly, and she knew she wouldn't come back. She found a room in a working-class neighborhood near the house where her mother lived. It was small, with damp walls and used furniture. The bathroom had a constant leak. The mattress was hard, but it was hers. Her space. Her beginning. She went to visit her mother, who lived with a kind neighbor who fed her in exchange for a small pension that Arantxa paid. The woman received her with open arms. Her mother, sitting in a rocking chair, stared out the window with a lost gaze. "Mom," Arantxa said, gently stroking her hand. "I'm pregnant." The woman slowly turned her head. She blinked. "Is that you, Rocio?" Arantxa smiled sadly. Her mother was confusing her with her late aunt. "No, Mom. It's me, Arantxa." The elderly woman looked at her for a long time. Then she caressed her face. "Be careful with men, daughter. Sometimes they swallow your soul without even saying thanks." Arantxa clenched her teeth to keep from crying. She returned to her new room. She sat on the floor, surrounded by unpacked boxes. She was scared, but also felt a strange peace, as if she was finally walking toward a place of her own. That night, she didn't dream of hospitals or disappearances. She dreamed of a forest with falling leaves and a voice saying, "Mom, I'm here." 3 days passed. Hunger was pressing. She had spent almost everything on the move. She ate rice and hard bread. Anxiety wouldn't let her think. She felt weak. A dizziness caught her while washing the dishes. She put her hands on the sink, but everything spun. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. She collapsed. Hours later, she opened her eyes. She was on the couch, a blanket over her. Someone was cooking in the tiny kitchen. The smell of soup reached her soul. "Wake up, brave one," said a familiar voice. "Bruno." She slowly sat up. He approached with a bowl. "You fainted. I called a nurse friend to check on you. You're fine, but you need to rest and eat." "How did you know?" "I went to the salon. They told me you no longer worked there. Then I stopped by the house. Geronimo said you had left. That made me mad. I looked him up on social media. I found an old story of yours with a geotag. I followed the clues. And here I am. I didn't come to save you," he added as he handed her a spoon. "I came to stay." She looked at him, not knowing what to say. She accepted the soup, ate, cried, and in the middle of her tears, her mother appeared at the door, brought by the neighbor. Bruno went to open it. "Hello," said the neighbor. The lady ran away. She said she wanted to see her girl. "I don't know how she got here." The mother came in. She saw Bruno, smiled. She approached and touched his face. "Thank you for coming back, old man. She needs you. She always needed you." Arantxa held back her tears. Bruno hugged the elderly woman without correcting her. She hugged him tightly. That day, without saying it, everyone knew something had changed. That a family could be born from pain, abandonment, ruins. And that the heartbeats that once tried to be silenced now set the rhythm for a new life. The dawn came through the window with a deceptive warmth. It was Arantxa's first day as an entrepreneur of her own handmade cosmetics brand. Bruno had helped paint the sign by hand, with crooked but sincere letters, and her mother, sitting in a makeshift wheelchair, watched everything with a childlike, calm expression, as if she didn't fully understand, but sensed something good was happening. The business was small, barely a corner set up in the front of the rented house, with recycled shelves, glass jars filled with creams, lavender soaps, natural exfoliants, and oils that Arantxa prepared with the hands that had once run a luxury salon. Everything smelled like home, like something real. But behind the scent of rosemary and eucalyptus, attention grew each day. Bruno had been frowning for weeks. Since he started digging into his father's documents, his father who had died under suspicious circumstances, his phone rang at strange hours, sometimes with calls no one answered. Other times, he found papers out of place in his office or anonymous messages on the door, like a note written in poorly erased pencil saying, "Leave what you don't understand." Arantxa noticed he was dealing with something dark, but she didn't press. She knew everyone has their own internal battles, and sometimes asking questions could open wounds still bleeding. One night, while washing the day's used jars, Bruno confessed part of the truth. "My father died of kidney failure. That's what the death certificate says. But when I saw his body, there was a badly closed scar on his abdomen. It didn't match anything documented." Arantxa stopped scrubbing. "Are you saying that?" "They took out an organ, Arantxa. And it wasn't a medical surgery. It was something else." She swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. "And you think someone from the hospital?" "I think there's a network. People profiting from the bodies of the vulnerable. My father was an alcoholic, sometimes homeless. No one would have asked about him if I weren't his son." Arantxa felt her skin crawl. There was something deeply cruel about the idea. Yet it didn't seem so far-fetched. "And this has to do with Geronimo," Bruno added quietly. "What?" "I saw his name in a document, listed as an investor in one of the private clinics where my father was treated. Arancha couldn't hide the nausea rising in her throat. She sat down abruptly. That can't be true. I have proof. I'm waiting for the report from a forensic technician who's helping me. But since I started, someone's already smashed my car windshield, and yesterday I found blood on my office door. Arancha felt fear. Not for herself. For the baby. You have to stop, Bruno. I can't. If I don't do it, no one will. And your daughter. My daughter too deserves a world that's a little less rotten. Arancha didn't answer. She looked at him with a mix of fear and respect. Then they went to bed. That night, she dreamed of cold hospitals, flickering lights, and hallways that smelled like formaldehyde. In one of them, Geronimo was opening a door with a bloody key. Inside, lined up bodies. And in the middle, Luna, her baby, sleeping on a metal stretcher. She woke up screaming. 2 weeks passed. The business was growing. The neighborhood clients were loyal, and Arancha had made a name for herself as the cream girl who also listens. Meanwhile, Bruno was gathering papers, recordings, and testimonies from employees at small clinics who claimed strange things, patients disappearing without death records, bodies being cremated without authorization. One gray morning, Arancha was labeling jars when someone urgently knocked on the door. It was Noelia. Her face was bruised from a blow. Her right eye swollen shut, her lips split. Arancha froze. What are you doing here? I need help. I don't know who else to turn to. Bruno came out from the back. He looked at her suspiciously. What happened to you? Geronimo, she whispered. He locked me up. He beat me. He took my phone. He threatened me. Arancha opened the door for her. Not out of compassion. Out of moral duty. Noelia sat down. She was shaking, holding her arms as if she needed to hold herself together. I got pregnant, she said, looking at the floor. He forced me to have an abortion. He didn't want any scandals. He said if I spoke out, he'd make me look like a thief, a drug addict. Said he had police friends. And you. I went to a clinic he paid for. They put me to sleep. I woke up bleeding. But something doesn't add up. Bruno, that clinic is the same one where they treated your father. Bruno felt his chest tighten. Are you sure? I saw your last name in a file. I thought it was a coincidence. Until I saw you on TV, in that public health report. Then I understood everything. Arancha closed her eyes. It was too much. Everything was intertwined. Her past, her present, her baby, Noelia, Bruno, Geronimo. In the following days, Noelia stayed with them. She slept little. She spoke even less. Arancha made her infusions. Bruno gently treated her wounds. Arancha's mother mistook her for a niece and sang her songs she learned as a child. And then, the blow came. Luna, who was already 5 months old, began having episodes of fatigue. She wasn't eating well. She was breathing with difficulty. Worried, Bruno took her to a pediatric cardiologist he knew. The diagnosis was a cold bucket of water. She has a heart malformation. She needs surgery. Soon. The doctor spoke seriously. It was an expensive, complicated operation with high risks. And they had no insurance. Arancha collapsed into the chair. Bruno held her hand. He didn't know whether to cry or scream. He felt like the world was laughing in their faces. Luna, so small, so fragile, with her little mouth trembling while sleeping, had a damaged heart. We're going to find a way, Bruno said, more out of instinct than certainty. For days, Arancha searched for help from foundations, public hospitals, even social networks. Some promises came, but so did the trolls. Messages like, if you can't take care of her, why did you have her? Or, you should have aborted her while you still could. She cried silently at night, biting her pillow to not wake Luna. Noelia started acting strange. She wandered alone through the neighborhood. Spoke little, wrote things in a notebook. One early morning, Arancha found her in the bathroom, staring at the mirror with a pill between her fingers. "That's not the way out," she said softly. "Then what is?" "Living, even if it hurts." Noelia didn't answer. She put the pill on the sink and locked herself in her room. The following week, Arantxa went to the market. When she returned, she found the house silent. Her mother was asleep. Bruno was at the clinic. Luna was in her crib. And Noelia was not there. She went to the bedroom. The door was closed. She knocked. No one answered. She entered. Noelia lay on the bed, her face serene, as if she were sleeping. Next to her, a letter. Arantxa screamed. She called Bruno. It was useless. She was dead. Bruno tried to revive her without success. The paramedics confirmed she had ingested a combination of sedative medications and alcohol. Arantxa trembled. The letter had only a few lines. "Forgive me. I couldn't take it anymore. I was going to be a mother too, but he took that away from me. Take care of your daughter. Let her never be afraid to tell her truth. I no longer have the strength." Arantxa broke down in tears. She held her as if she were a lost sister. Her mother, confused, asked if it was Christmas. Luna cried in her crib. Bruno clenched his fists. He looked up to the sky and said what Arantxa did not dare to speak aloud. "We're going to end him, no matter what it takes." And at that moment, everything changed. The truth was no longer a right. It was a debt, and someone had to pay it, with blood if necessary. Noelia's death left the house in a silence that not even Luna's crying could fill. For days, Arantxa spoke only when necessary. She walked with slow, mechanical movements, as if her body kept functioning out of inertia while her soul slipped away inside. She slept little, ate less. Bruno tried to stay strong, but he too began to crumble inside. The pressure from his father's case, the constant threat to his life, the helplessness of watching Luna deteriorate without being able to pay for her surgery. The world seemed to be digging a grave beneath their feet, pushing them slowly but relentlessly. Every day, Luna's heart beat slower, weaker. Sometimes she couldn't suck properly on the bottle. Other times, she simply fainted in her mother's arms. The doctor was clear. Either she had surgery soon, or the end was inevitable. Arantxa knocked on every door. She went to public hospitals, wrote to foundations, requested hearings, brought medical documents, begged deputies, journalists, organizations. The answer was always the same: funds exhausted, waiting list, form rejected, priorities, come back later, we're very sorry. A social worker told her coldly that they couldn't give her priority because the patient was not affiliated with a private insurance plan. Arantxa looked at her without blinking. "So, what am I supposed to do? Let her die because I don't have private insurance?" The woman tidied up the folders on her desk and looked away. "You're not the only mother with problems, ma'am. There are hundreds in your situation. We can't help them all." That night, Arantxa returned home without tears. She had exhausted them all. Bruno greeted her with hot soup and a tense face. "I sold the car," he said bluntly, "and some of the equipment I had at the clinic." "How much did you get?" "Enough to cover part of the surgery, but not all of it." Arantxa swallowed hard. She couldn't thank him, nor blame him. They were alone. No one else would do it. In the following days, they started a fundraiser on social media. They shared Luna's story, showed photos, talked about the diagnosis. Some people donated. Others wrote cruel messages. One woman left a comment that went viral for its insensitivity. "If you can't afford her, why did you have her?" Arantxa responded with a video recorded on her phone. "I didn't choose this path. No one chooses it. But since I'm here, I'm not going to give up. I won't apologize for fighting for my daughter. I'm not ashamed of not having money. I would be ashamed of doing nothing. And if the world doesn't want to listen to a poor mother, then let it hear me scream." The video was shared, commented on, applauded by some and mocked by others. A journalist from a local channel invited her to speak. Arantxa hesitated but accepted. She wore her only nice blouse, did her hair as best she could, and carried Luna in her arms. The interview was brief but intense. The journalist, young and somewhat clumsy, asked a question that made many uncomfortable. "Don't you think bringing children into the world in poverty is irresponsible?" Arantxa was silent. Then she looked into the camera. "Don't you think letting a child die because you don't have money is a crime?" The next day, her face was everywhere. The segment went viral. Some called her a hero, others a victim, but most called her the mother who doesn't give up. That same week, while sweeping the entrance of the store, an elderly woman approached her. She wore a white scarf on her head, her skin wrinkled, her eyes sunken. "You're the one from TV, aren't you?" "Yes," Arantxa replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I'm Milagros. I lost my daughter 2 days ago. A newborn. It was an internal hemorrhage. They couldn't do anything." Arantxa didn't know what to say. "I saw your little girl in the video, and I thought, if my little girl isn't going to live, at least let her be useful, so that another one doesn't die." Arantxa froze. "Are you saying that?" "Yes, that they can use her heart. I don't care about paperwork. I don't care about bureaucracy. I'll sign whatever is needed." Arantxa felt her legs give out. She leaned against the wall and started to cry. How can life be born from another mother's pain? Dona Milagros took her hand. "Because we are mothers, and mothers don't give life only by giving birth. We give it when we choose for another to have it, even if ours fades away." Bruno handled the process. He went to the hospital, brought the papers. Dona Milagros signed the authorization. The doctor agreed to evaluate the case. But 3 days later, the hospital refused to perform the transplant. It doesn't meet protocol. The donor died outside the regulated system. There are rules that must be followed. Bruno lost control. He slammed his fist on the director's desk. Arantxa screamed. Dona Milagros cried. "What rules? The ones that let poor people die because they don't have an official stamp? The girl is still cold. She's intact. What's wrong with you?" The director was blunt. "We can't take the risk. If something goes wrong, you could sue the hospital. We can't assume that responsibility." Bruno looked at him with rage. "Then get ready. Because I will sue you. Not just you. The whole damn system that decides who lives and who dies based on what's in their bank account." Arantxa couldn't take it anymore. She called the journalist. She told everything. They recorded Dona Milagros's testimony. Filmed Luna connected to cables. She spoke without filters. Accused the hospital. Named names. The video aired. It went viral faster than the previous one. This time, it trended. Arantxa's face appeared in every media outlet. The hashtag A Cradle for Luna filled social media. People from everywhere started donating, asking questions, protesting outside the hospital. The next morning, the director received a call from the Ministry of Health, and the doors opened. Arantxa didn't celebrate. She just closed her eyes and whispered to Luna, her voice broken. "Hold on a little longer, my love. Almost there. Mommy won't let you go." And in that promise, there was a strength no system, no matter how powerful, could break. The operating room lights stayed on when the clock hit the 4th hour of waiting. Outside, in the waiting room, Arantxa clasped her hands so tightly her knuckles turned white. Bruno was beside her, staring at the floor, his body stiff, his heart pounding with a tearing anxiety. Luna's operation had started at dawn, after days of protests, interviews, legal threats, and a whole country watching. Inside, the heart of a dead baby was preparing to give life to another. Milagros's heart, the newborn who never breathed outside the incubator, would now beat inside Luna. A cruel irony. A hope made of pain. The door opened slowly. The surgeon came out. His face covered by a mask, but his eyes said everything. He slowly took off his gloves and threw them into the yellow bin. The surgery was a success. Luna responded well. She'll be in intensive care for the next 48 hours. Then we'll reassess. Arantxa collapsed to the floor, on her knees, breathless, speechless. Bruno caught her before her body hit the tiles. "We did it," he whispered. "Thank you," she said through tears. "Thank you for not letting go." "I never will," he replied, stroking her head like he wanted to protect her from the whole world. Hours passed until they could see her. Luna's chest was covered in gauze, breathing tubes, monitor wires. But she was alive. Her heart beat strong, steady, regular. Bruno stayed in the room with her, sitting in the corner, quietly reading the stories he had brought in his backpack. Arantxa slept in a chair, exhausted, wrapped in a blanket lent by a nurse. News of the surgery spread beyond the neighborhood. Some media picked it up. The mother who defied the system. The baby with the borrowed heart. Comments poured in, thousands of them. Supportive, opposing, tearful, angry. But everyone was talking about Luna. 3 days later, when they were finally able to take Luna out of the incubator and let her sleep in a regular crib, Bruno couldn't stop looking at her. There was something miraculous about the way she breathed. Her chest rose and fell calmly. She no longer gasped for air. She no longer turned pale. Luna slowly opened her eyes and searched for her mother's voice. That's when Geronimo appeared. He walked through the hospital door with confident steps, dark sunglasses, a wrinkle-free suit, and his ego intact. He was accompanied by a lawyer with an angular face and a fake smile. "I want to see my daughter," he said in an authoritative tone. Bruno stepped in front of him. "Go away. You have no business here. She is my daughter. Biologically, at least. I have a right." "Right," Bruno repeated with a dry laugh. "You don't know what that means. If it were up to you, she'd be dead. Or she'd never have been born." Geronimo ignored him. Arantxa, who was coming out of the bathroom, stopped when she saw him. Her eyes filled with fury. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to claim what's mine." "Mine? Is that how you talk about a child? Like she's property? Don't give me the moral speech. You used me. You left. And now that everyone is talking about you, you think you're a hero. But I have my rights. And I want a paternity test." Arantxa looked at him as if he were an insect. "Do it." "I don't care." "Perfect," said the lawyer, pulling out some papers. "We already have the court order. A technician will come tomorrow to take samples." Bruno wanted to hit him, but Arantxa stopped him with a look. It wasn't worth getting their hands dirty. On the day of the test, Luna didn't cry. She only looked curiously at the cotton brushing her cheek. Arantxa stayed distant. Bruno paced back and forth like a trapped wolf. The results arrived in 3 days. The envelope was opened in front of a notary, as Geronimo demanded. "Luna is the biological daughter of Geronimo Vasquez," the technician read, with a neutral voice. Arantxa didn't cry at that moment. She just closed her eyes. Bruno kept his eyes open, fixed on the floor. Geronimo smiled triumphantly, as if he had won a chess game. "So, in the end, she really was mine," he said mockingly. "And you, Bruno? Are you going to keep raising what isn't yours?" Bruno looked at him for the first time with absolute contempt. "I'm staying because I want to, not because I have to. That's the difference between you and me." Arantxa broke down in tears that night. Not because of the result. Because of everything. The fear that Geronimo would use paternity as a legal weapon to take Luna away from her. The uncertainty. The anger. Bruno sat beside her on the hospital bed. He said nothing. He just hugged her. "If you want me to leave, I'll leave. But I'm not going to stop loving her. And I'm not going to stop loving you." "I can't promise you anything," she said between sobs. "Neither can I," he replied. "I can only promise I'll be here tomorrow." Days later, Arantxa confronted Geronimo in the hospital hallway. She carried Luna in her arms. He looked at her with that mix of arrogance and possession that disgusted her so much. "You made her," Arantxa said firmly. "But he takes care of her. And that's what matters." Geronimo clenched his teeth. "Don't think this ends here. No. It starts now. Because now I'm ready to fight. Not for me. For her." Hours later, While Arantxa slept in the room, a nurse noticed something was wrong. Luna wasn't in her crib. The hallway cameras showed Geronimo covering his face with a cap, entering the room while she slept. He took Luna and tried to leave through the emergency exit. But the new security system installed after the media exposure triggered the alarms. Guards stopped him. Everything was recorded. The police arrived within minutes. Geronimo was arrested on the spot. He fought. He shouted. He accused everyone of conspiracy. He said she was his daughter, that he had rights. The law was not on his side this time. The video of the kidnapping attempt went public. The image of Arantxa holding Luna, crying while protecting her from her own father, spread across the country. No one questioned anymore who the real mother was. No one doubted Bruno's place. That night, while the television replayed the scandal, Luna slept peacefully. And Arantxa, for the first time in a long while, did too. Not because she wasn't afraid, because she was certain. Blood doesn't make parents. Love does. The sun was setting over the park with a warmth that didn't burn, as if the sky, for once, had agreed with the peace dwelling in Arantxa's heart. Luna ran through the dry leaves, her green dress waving like a silent flag of victory. She was already 2 years old. And every step she took, every word she learned, echoed the promise Arantxa had whispered to her in the hospital's darkness, that she would live, that she would fight, that she would be happy. Bruno sat beside her on the wooden bench they usually shared every Saturday. They didn't touch, they didn't need to. Between them, there were no labels, no rings, no contracts. Just an invisible pact made of gestures and presence. Every time Luna fell, Bruno got up before Arantxa did. Every time she laughed, Arantxa looked at Bruno before joining in. They didn't live together, but they shared their days. Bruno had opened a community clinic right next to the cosmetics shop Arantxa turned into a small business. She employed 5 women from the neighborhood. Single mothers, survivors of violence, women who, like her, had once been discarded for not having enough. Every soap they sold carried a hand-engraved phrase, "Life isn't cleaned, it's embraced." At the clinic, Bruno worked without charging. He had secured donations of medicine, volunteers, and a partnership with the university. His patients adored him. They brought him empanadas, drawings, even letters. But he always said the same thing, "I only came to stay." The news of Geronimo's arrest was forgotten by the media as soon as they found another scandal. He was convicted of attempted kidnapping, along with several crimes linked to the medical trafficking network that Bruno had helped uncover with a journalist's help. His sentence was reduced on a legal technicality, but still, public opinion buried him. No one wanted to work with him. He lost his status, his power, his name. Arantxa never mentioned him again. Luna never met him. And Bruno never used his absence to gain ground. He simply was. That day in the park, while Luna picked up stones and called them treasures, Arantxa glanced sideways at Bruno. "Can you imagine that 3 years ago I would have bet everything that you and I wouldn't even last a conversation?" Bruno smiled without taking his eyes off Luna. "And look at us now. We can't stop talking, even when we say nothing. Do you regret it? Staying with you, never. Having to see you so broken, yes. I wish I had arrived sooner." Arantxa looked down, not out of sadness, but out of respect. Bruno's words always carried just the right weight. "My mother is worse," she said after a while. "She doesn't even recognize me anymore." Bruno placed his hand on hers, just for a second, then crossed his arms again. "When the time comes, I'll be there." And it came sooner than they thought. Mrs. Carmen died one calm night. She was in her armchair, looking out the window. The neighbor who cared for her found her with a slight smile and a blanket over her legs. She left no letters. Only a whisper she said to the nurse hours before dying. "Tell my girl she's not alone anymore." The wake was modest. Few flowers. Heavy silence. Luna didn't understand, but she didn't leave Arantxa's side. Bruno took care of receiving the few relatives left. There were whispers. Older women murmured that it was a sin not to marry, that a girl needed a father. But there were also murmurs of admiration. That Arantxa was brave. That few could endure what she had. When everyone began to leave, an unexpected figure appeared at the cemetery gate. He was tall, thin, his face worn down by years of imprisonment. Arantxa's brother, Martin. She saw him and froze. Luna clung to her leg. Bruno, a few steps away, didn't intervene. Martin lowered his gaze. He walked up to her, opened his arms. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I failed you. I failed Mom." Arantxa said nothing. She hugged him tightly. She cried silently. He did too. Bruno approached slowly. Martin extended his hand. "Thank you for taking care of them." Bruno didn't answer. He hugged him too. It was a moment. A truce. A family. Life went on. Not perfect, but real. Luna started daycare. Arantxa expanded the business. Bruno received an award from the university for his community work. Martin found a job as an assistant at the neighborhood cooperative. All of them, in their own way, were rebuilding something. Luna learned how to write her name. And one day, when she was leaving school, she gave a drawing to Bruno. It was a house. 3 people. Her, Arantxa, and him. "Who's this?" he asked, smiling. "Dad." Bruno looked at Arantxa. She just nodded, her eyes full of feeling. "Can I call you that?" Bruno lifted her in his arms. "Of course, my love." That night, Arantxa wrote in her journal something she had never written before. "I don't have a happy ending, but I have a true one, and that's worth more." Months passed. In an interview for a local magazine, Arantxa was asked if she had learned anything after so much pain. She answered, "Sometimes, pain is just the beginning. Not everything that breaks needs to be fixed. Some wounds don't heal, but they bloom." I didn't have a fairy tale. I had a real story, full of struggle, love, and choice. And I wouldn't change a single tear if it brought me here. The journalist was silent. Then she wrote in her notebook, "The woman who survived everything, even herself." And at the end of the day, Luna, at the park, shouted to them from afar, "Dad, Mom, look what I found." It was a stone. Ordinary, dirty, worthless. But they ran anyway, because in their daughter's eyes, everything was treasure. Everything was home. Everything was chosen love. The only love that never betrays. The one that stays, even if it's not forced. Because that's how a family is built. From broken pieces that don't want to break anymore. If you liked this story, I invite you to leave a comment telling me how it made you feel. And if you've been through a similar experience of betrayal, I'd love for you to share your valuable opinion. Remember to tell me which city you're watching this video from. I would feel very honored if you give me a like, share the video with a friend or family member, and subscribe to the channel. Don't miss the next amazing story that's appearing on your screen right now. We have guaranteed entertainment just for you. See you in the next video.